You have to accept it. Part of your value should be treating those that you love with respect and dignity and overcoming your trauma to make this relationship work. So I would say that values have to be in line with behaviors. Look at your behaviors as an indicator. If your values have been muddied by your traumas, it should be still your value to undo the trauma, to treat people correctly.
Yeah, there is that very virtue signally kind of immature version of what you say your values are
Yeah,
versus your behaviors reveal what
your
your true
behaviors.
values are.
Yeah.
In that process of meeting somebody that you're attracted to, of starting a relationship with someone, how much do you see as a psychologist in your background and study is like the template that we have for relationships stemming from childhood? What are the key things that we can become aware of as to what our coping mechanisms, attachment styles, like these things that really inform how we relate and how we forgive when working with people? Like, does it always just come back to that?
Well, you have to ask yourself, what do I do when I'm at my worst? How do I treat my partner when I'm at my worst? We're all good at our best. And a lot of people are like, oh, but I love her because at her best, she's fantastic. Or he's so great at his best. But really select people by what they're like at their worst, because this will reveal your coping mechanisms. And so if at your worst, you figure out that you get abusive, physically, you get abusive, then you're not ready for a relationship. And similarly, if you find that at your worst, you can be emotionally abusive, a bit aggressive. This is not, you're not ready for a relationship. Select people who, at their worst, you can handle them, and not accept it, but can you handle them at their worst? Do not go into a relationship editing their behavior based on just what they do at their best. When I always say to people, take your partner's worst behavior and imagine it gets 20% worse for the rest of your life. Would you still be with them? If the answer is yes, look, my partner, for example, is a very boring person. He's a boring man. He'll come home, watch Judge Judy, and go to bed. That's his life. Now, if that gets worse and progresses to Dr. Phil or something, I could probably handle that. Yeah, I could probably handle that. But if it gets to the point where, let's say, the deal breaker is that he's hostile, he's aggressive, and is verbally aggressive. Now, if that gets 20% worse and he starts being verbally aggressive in public, or he starts being verbally aggressive to kids or something like that, I don't know if I can handle that for the rest of my life. So take people with their worst behavior. I'm not saying end it, but just be realistic with yourself. If it gets about 20% worse, could you maintain this marriage or relationship? If the answer is, yeah, I mean, they're a bit annoying, they're a bit messy, but if they got 20% worse, I can take that. It's not the end of the world. But if it's like I'm hanging in by a thread right now, if they even get 1% worse, I won't be able to handle it. Do not increase your investment with that person. You will regret it. So just be mindful of that.
What do you think about traditionally, as a man gets older, what society views as valuable kind of tends to increase, meaning his success, the money he makes, all of these things. And traditionally, what society views women as kind of their values is in beauty. And unfortunately, it's mainly just like external beauty. As time progresses, as people get older, those are kind of going at an inverse rate, meaning the man kind of his stock continues to go up and a woman's would go down in that metric. Now, I believe that there's so much more to
Yeah,
obviously a
of
woman's
course
beauty than
yeah.
just the fit. Like, but what do you think about that in terms of the problems it creates when relating and dating?
The problem it creates, here's what I would say. The problem is with, I think pornography and Instagram doesn't help. But the main thing that I find with men as they age is their sex drive doesn't decrease. And for a woman, it's more her sex drive decreases so much as she gets older and as she gets children and so on and so forth. So the craving for more women younger usually comes when that need is not being satisfied. So I think what happens is men are relatively consistent in how much sex they want for the rest of their lives. Yeah, if they said 3 times a week at 15, they'll say that at 65. It doesn't change. For women, it's kind of like they don't have that. They don't really have that experience. So what ends up happening is as a man ages, he feels like he's providing more to the family. He's doing more. He's more valuable, but he's receiving less sex as he gets older from his partner. And it's for men, a lot of the time, that's their form of appreciation. So they're feeling like I'm getting more valuable. I can have more options. I'm choosing to commit to you and I'm not getting the one thing I need. And they're like, okay, fine. I'm going to go and like kid at a candy store and go elsewhere and go find it. The problem is whichever woman you choose, her desire decreases. She could be 20 or she could be 50. As they get more connected to you, their desire decreases. So I think the mismatch is not just only on the external values, but also on their experience with sex. I do think men who have a happy sex life tend to be relatively okay with their partner forever. But those that feel deprived in that area really crave to go back into the dating pool, access a younger, more beautiful woman just to get that feeling again. And I'm learning that more and more, working with more clients, how consistent it is for them and how much they want it. But at the same time, they're afraid to have those confrontational conversations with their wives because society and everybody kind of makes us feel like it's a bit toxic to ask that from your partner. But I do think if we are sworn to sexual monogamy with somebody, it is your right to at least have those discussions and ask for what your needs are. But a lot of men are afraid to ask that, and then they end up going elsewhere and breaking the laws of the marriage.
Do you think we're wired for monogamy?
I think we're wired for connection. And I would say there's two types of men in the world. I would say some men are very monogamous to their wife, whoever she is. Like if they're married, they can stay married. They're committed to that vow and they can be loyal to her for the rest of their lives. Other men, I think majority of men are loyal to the woman they fell in love with. If she stays that woman, he can be loyal to her forever. If she stays that woman. But if she changes aesthetically, emotionally, sexually, if she changes, the polygamy in him starts to kick in. So I think loyalty, some men are loyal to the woman regardless of her behavior. Some women are loyal to the woman they fell in love with. And you just have to decide which kind of man you are. And if you are the type of man who's going to be loyal regardless of whether she changes, doesn't change, marriage is really good for you. Yeah, it will stabilize you. It's really good for you. If you are the man that is loyal to the woman you fell in love with, but if she gains weight, if she has kids, if there's no sex, you're going to stray.